And here we are. Unbelievable. 2025. Actually, very believable. Hold on. No matter what I do to be prepared to do the live stream, I always get caught up doing something. And then it's at the last minute, which is not intended. So I see some notes here. I'm going to go and, yeah, DJ, Brandon, David, I realized I want to turn on that monitor. Let me see if it works. You can hear me. I'll be right back. I'll be right back, kids. After these messages. If you remember that jingle. I think this is going to work. And I appreciate your patience. I would like to get the monitor going over here because then I can see everybody's comments. And that was off for a reason. So let me just fire that up and then make sure it's going. Okay. Fingers crossed. Ooh. That went into the matrix. Let's see what happens. And I'm going to grab my comments and put them. Yeah, there we go. We're back. There we go. Ooh, this monitor is entirely too bright, but that's okay. How's everybody doing? Wednesday, January 8th already. So we're well into the month. And the original intention was, and first of all, let me know that you can hear and see me because that would be a problem. That we were going to do Camera Flask, but scheduling conflicts for both Ben and Caleb. So we're trying to figure out when the next episode of Camera Flask is going to be. It's a little bit of a moving target based on schedules. And this live stream will be obviously happening this week. Next week, I'll be on an airplane traveling back from LA. So I'll try to do one next week, but it might be like a Thursday or something like that. Let's see what we got. Hey, groovy cats of a volcanic nature won't be able to join this evening. The bummer. Thanks on the 12K. Yeah. Yeah, I did. I hit 12,000 subscribers. Kind of lame, but still, I guess a minor milestone. Hey to Darren and hey to Sam, and of course the David. What do I have? The Davids. Yes, I have the Davids here today. And here we are. So I'd love to hear from you. This setup, I kind of looking to my left and down for the comments and the reactions. I probably could just put them right onto the screen in front of me. And that might actually be a better way to do it. Which I can do because we're not doing Camera Flask. So tell me what is happening. I hope everybody had a good holiday season. Family, friends, food, laughter, all that good stuff. And I think we're into it now. So, yeah. Oh, David has the new 80C in the house. How is that bouncing baby? Are you enjoying it? Do you notice anything about it that is revolutionary? Do you, because you've been using aperture lights for a long time, David, notice a difference in light quality? I'd be interested to hear about that. I think that in the relatively near future, I should be getting some of the newer aperture fixtures here in-house. So I really want to take them through their paces. Not surprisingly, I'm most interested in the 1200X because about 98% or 99% of my work is based on white light. So anything related to that sort of, 2800 Kelvin up to about 65, 7000 Kelvin. That's sort of my sweet spot. It's a pretty big sweet spot, but most of the time I'm either shooting at 32, going a little warmer, going 56 going a little warmer or cooler, or if I'm shooting content that has lots of screens in it, because the base white point of most monitors is D65 or 6500 Kelvin, I do like to light the set at around 6500 Kelvin for that, because it's just less post-production issues in terms of adjusting the monitor to match talent, so on. And so you just don't want those huge shifts. So even if you're shooting at 55, 5600 Kelvin and your monitor has a white point of D65, sure, certain monitors you can go in and just change that. But yeah, there you go. You love the new Pro Lock or whatever they're calling it Bones mount on that ADC. And I believe on the ADC, you're getting the mini Bones lockable mount. But does it come with the adapter in the box to go full Bowens, or is that a separate accessory? So anything you can tell me about that, Mr. Carroll, will be great. Brad, good to have you. Glad to have you back on the live stream, and everybody else who's here. So as always, the whole idea of the weekly live stream, unless we're doing a contest or trivia or things like that, is to really just chat about production, equipment, things like that. And that's what I'm hoping we're going to be doing. So you know how to start the party. It's an at the C47, and then a question, a comment, an idea, something you want to talk about. Food is not off the table. It's always welcome on this particular channel. I don't know about those other filmmaking, content creation channels out there, but on this one in particular, we can talk about the food all we want. But I would love to talk about cameras and lenses and lighting and people's thoughts on 2025 and all of that good stuff. So that's why we do the live stream. It's the community part of this, except for when I'm doing the daily drop and you're commenting and making posts and stuff like that. So I'm here for you. But the way it moves is a question comes up. So, or a comment. David says, I wish it came with some barn doors, and it does not come with a regular Bones adapter. Got it. Do they have barn doors available yet for the ADC? They obviously have. They obviously have for the larger lights combinations. Very oftentimes when you go full Bowens, you'll get your barn doors and they'll be part of a Fresnel package. But I'm interested to find out. I haven't dug into all of that. I have looked into the accessories. And speaking of lighting, I'm wondering what people's viewpoints are besides aperture in terms of what we'll see coming in 2025. Pat, good to have you, even though you're on the road. Dylan, what's happening? Good to have you here. And you say, my best friend picked up a Red Dragon package in Vegas on Facebook Marketplace for $1,200. Wow. Not too bad. Yeah, it's crazy if you look back, now on eBay and stuff. I would say look back. If you look on eBay at some of the older cameras that are out there on the market, it's amazing what some of them are going for or what they're not going for in terms. I know, right? Absolutely. David says, I ordered the Fresnel and barn doors. Yeah, especially with those smaller mounts. It's the same way, for instance, with the Nanlite, the 60C, the RGB ACL light of theirs. You buy the Fresnel. I think that's what comes with the barn doors, if I remember correctly. I think so. Yeah. All right. So what do we got? What are we talking about? What is the conversation besides sort of ending off 2024 with people letting everybody know, at least on this channel, what kind of equipment purchases they made and things like that? What is everybody up to? What are you thinking about in terms of equipment for 2025? What's your outlook for the year? What do you want to focus on? Again, the whole idea of the weekly live stream is to really have that community component to it, where we are sharing information, asking questions about how to do things, and that's why basically the channel exists. So I like doing these every week. I don't get to do them every week because of my schedule, but we're here now, and I'm assuming, unless something comes up, that 2 weeks from now we'll be back again. So Brandon says, moving along well with our studio build, with a question mark, a question about patching video signals to our control room, thinking about using SDI patch panels and running cable on the ceiling. If I mean, SDI, you can do longer runs for sure. It doesn't have the same issues that you have with HDMI. So that should work if you are SDI based all around. I guess you could also look at doing something like an Ethernet. There are like HDMI, or I believe also maybe SDI, but there's definitely HDMI to Ethernet. You can do fiber. Yeah, Dylan's saying fiber. Um, there's a lot of different options. I think what you don't want to do, you absolutely want to have power in the ceiling for sure. So if you have a grid, you want to have that. Um, I have quads all over the ceiling in this particular space. So anytime I'm hanging off a pipe here on the grid, I can just plug right into the ceiling, and then I have dedicated switches inside of the studio that are, you can't see them, they're just out of frame right there. They're sometimes in frame. On that far wall, I can turn on and off basically, you know, those components. So there's some considerations in terms of power, but then don't lock yourself in, Brandon, to one particular type of connection. If you can get panels that are multi-connector, and you're going to do runs like that, then fine. But generally, fiber is a good way to go. This is really where the worlds of IT and sort of, production come together. So finding somebody who has some experience doing that would be a good idea. But, it really depends on what cameras and other things you have in the space from that standpoint. Technically, depending on how many cameras you're going to be running, you could go wireless as well, especially because your space is so small. So, for instance, the Axoon CineView Master 4K, that's a pretty great solution for certain types of workflows. Um, but it's not the only one. So, I'm not suggesting you go wireless, but because some of the new wireless systems can be powered by mains very easily, then that can be at least something you consider if you're talking about very few camera systems. And if you are pushing those, to a control room, and you have dedicated monitors for those cameras, or you're going to do like a multi-up and then, bring that in, it should work with the pass-throughs on the receivers and things like that, because it's just signals. But do remember that it's, it is wireless. So, the rule of thumb is a hardwired connection is always going to be more reliable unless somebody snips it. But I wasn't referring to anything there. I'm just saying that's much more reliable overall. So there you go. Here we go. So now we're getting some, yeah. Happy New Year, Scott. Are you up in Alaska, in the place that's actually warmer right now than New York City? Or are you down in Tejas? David says CCT, so correlated color temperature output at 100 on the ADC open face is similar to the 60X flooded. Okay. And ADC 100% reflector is similar to spotted. Got it. So not as much output as the 60 on the 80 is what you're saying. It'll be interesting to see if they come out with an 80X or something like that using the Blair engine, if you're going to get more output, or if it's the you know, the two I don't know. I'm interested to hear that. Scott says not yet, getting really close. Okay. Brandon says I have to patch XLR anyways, so I was thinking of running SDI as well. Hmm. Hmm. Something about this tells me there's a better solution to this because rack based patching for XLR and SDI is done all of the time. Can you give me some information, Brandon, on terms of number of cameras that are going to be running in that studio? How many mics you're going to be using? Does it make more sense to run everything into a mixer recorder and then push that somehow? Um, I guess I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're trying to do and how much is that control room actually doing? Is that control room switching and doing a whole bunch of other stuff, or is it more of a village type of situation where people are monitoring sound, monitoring picture? If they need to, they can talk to talent and crew inside of the studio space. I'm just trying to get a sense of how you're going to be using this. Um, that would be good. Pardon me. All right. So what do we got next? Just keep this. Let's keep it going. Let's get some info in here. I'm looking at the questions and I'm ready to chat. On my end, I'm heading to LA. Hopefully everything is, sort of, I wouldn't say back to normal, but hopefully, things are, it's going to take a while with these fires, which are really a serious thing. But hopefully that's kind of subsided when I go down on Sunday, and then I'm doing a pre-light and prep day on Monday, and then production all day Tuesday, and then I'll come back on Wednesday afternoon. And this is for educational, instructional video and a couple of social media spots to support that for a company in our industry. So should be fun. New product. That's coming to market, and not that it's a secret project, but it's just a new product that's coming to market, and we're still working out all of the logistics and stuff, but it should be really fun because we're going to be on a soundstage type space with a cinematographer and a gaffer and I think a camera op and an AC, and then basically create some content in and around how they're using this new product line within the work that they're doing. So yeah, that should be fun. And I am not the type of person who waits to pack in general. It's Wednesday afternoon, and I've got a pretty good sense of what I'm bringing with me. I did an episode yesterday on this Rex folding rolling camera stand, which is a pretty interesting piece of kit. It doesn't have a huge weight capacity. I think it's around 7.5 pounds or so, but I'm supporting a mirrorless camera, an iPad mini, a power delivery bank and stuff like that. So I'm pretty okay in terms of that. I am going to put the MixPre 6 on there too. Their MixPre 6.2 on there on that rolling stand, because for the interviews that I'm going to do for the questions for the cinematographer and gaffer, I'm just going to set up I'm bringing in the sound recorders for all the stuff when they're working on set. But when I do the interviews and stuff, I'm just going to do a setup. I'm going to pick a place where I have a nice frame, and then I'll probably set it up so I can do a flip the key. So I'd have for instance, I'll have the cinematographer looking camera right, and then I'll have the gaffer looking camera left. So if I have time, if I don't, then hopefully they're not wearing any logos and stuff. Just flip it in post. Not a great way to do it though. And there's tells when you do that. So especially if you can see the space, because you'd be like, the same space, they just flip the frame. Okay, so Brandon says 3 cameras, all HDMI. Okay. So interested why you're going SDI on that. You might want to go HDMI to fiber, or Ethernet, maybe. 3 mics, more of a village. We're recording podcasts. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't sound like you have a lot of distance to that control room. So there may be other ways to do this. I'm thinking that you're trying to run things through the ceiling or something like that. Um, Again, just interested to see, um, is it just that you don't want any wires except for coming down from the cameras? Um, the real problem that I see is if you're splitting the video signal and the audio signal, especially with HDMI, I can foresee latency problems between picture and sound. I think you're going to have some issues with that, especially because it's HDMI. Unless you're carrying that audio over HDMI, and then you probably won't have any issues at all. But then that takes out of the equation the whole conversation about running and distributing XLR in terms of audio. So, yeah. Scott says, how many daily drops do you have shot ahead of time? The answer is a big fat 0. That's not true all of the time, Scott, but most of the time I'm doing these. Like after today's live stream, I'm going to shoot an episode on something and then I will edit that and I'll post it. If I'm going into a production week, then the reality is I'm going to have to. So, more than likely, what will happen is if I'm working next Monday and Tuesday, even if I'm creating content for the daily drop either of those days, I will make sure that I have episodes that are shot and scheduled for Monday and Tuesday of next week. And the reason I need to do that is because it's just not the way my brain works when I'm on set, when I'm doing a production. I can't think about creating that content on that day. At the end of the day, quote unquote, I'm going to be taking what's shot in this case on my camera and also the Hero through the lens camera, which will be either a Venice 2 or an Alexa or whatever it's going to be. And I'm going to have to offload that. It's very small crew in terms of I don't have a data wrangler. So I'm also going to be handling that. So there's no way at the end of a 10-hour day that I'm going to want to go back to the hotel, offload, edit an episode, upload the episode. And then there are times where I'm going to, um, be on a trip for a while or I want to have time with my family. And that's when I might do multiple episodes in a row. So there you go. Let me see what this question is. Shoji, are SD cards a reliable way to store your video footage versus CF Express versus external recorder? I'm not quite sure what the question is. I mean, when it comes to production, what we always do is we shoot to cards. We try not to shoot on those same cards the same day, but we will not reformat a card and shoot to it unless that data, that footage is sitting on at least 2 drives. So I wouldn't necessarily use SD cards or CF cards for longer term backup of footage. I mean, they are somewhat cost effective, but they're not as cost effective as SSDs even nowadays. Generally, if you think about having 4 terabytes of storage space, fast storage space on something like an X9 Pro from Crucial, that might be $230, and you're not going to get that much storage on SD cards for that price. And it's going to be split up because you're not buying 4 terabyte SD cards. Scott says they introduced new 92 gigabit per second HDMI 2 standard. I saw that, and all I can think about is how I can use that to connect computers together with them as a network. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. I was going to say rad, but I grew up on the East Coast, so we don't say that word. A few people do, but then they're not from the East Coast. Shoji Productions, we also don't say stoked. So I'm just putting it out there. I've lived on the West Coast now it'll be 8 years this summer, and stoked and rad, while I don't have any problem with those words, they are not part of my particular vocabulary. And I think you'll find the same for most people who grew up in a place like New York. I'm just sharing information. That's all I'm doing. Do you only use cameras with dual SD card slots? Not always. Sometimes I'm using a camera with a single card slot, like the A7C2. But yes, in general, if I'm going to do a production for a client, I like to use cameras that have dual card slots, and I like double slot recording. Though cameras are, as long as the media you're using is reliable, people are shooting to one card all of the time on a lot of cameras. David says, I'm assuming you're talking about the ADC. I really like the mini lantern diffuser that comes with it. And if you want to use a V-mount battery, you need a USB-C cable that doesn't come with it. Huh. Okay. I'll have to look into that more. And Jeff says that's totally bogus. I don't know what's totally bogus. Tell me, Jeff. What do you... bogus also. Gnarly, far out. Well, far out, man, that's like old school. That's going back in time. So, I'm DeBrown. Let's be honest, okay? I don't think you were saying rad and tubular and what was the other one I said? Stoked very much when you were growing up. I might be wrong. I gotta say something like that to get comments to come in a stream like that, one after the other. Crazy sauce. All right, what's next? What other words do people not have in their vocabulary? I'm not trying to get demonetized here. I'm just asking for a friend. Oh, we say cool. Definitely say cool. We also, this may be very regional, but in New York, we would say, oh, snap, but we would also say, oh, dip. So I don't know anywhere else. Maybe that went down the East Coast a little bit, but we would say, oh, snap. And then somebody would say, oh, dip. And then somebody would say, oh, snap. And then we'd go back. It was like a chorus. It was ridiculous. I don't want to know about that. I'm DeBrown. Too much information. Okay. You were saying those because you were transported. Okay. I don't know what Smurf talk is, but maybe when people were watching the Smurfs, I actually had little Smurfs back in the day. I admit it. It was the 80s. Yeah, bad for good. That's, we would say like things were whack. I guess people say that still. But we didn't say things like buns and cap and, well, some of the things that the youngins are saying now. Shoji, any opinions on the Sony ZV-E1? I hear it has the same sensor as the FX3 and A7S III. I don't really have a lot of feelings on it. I mean, I was intrigued by it because it had some AI stuff, which is also in the A7C2. But I do believe it has some issues related to overheating. I would say if you're looking at that camera, look at the A7C2 as well. That's not a camera that I'm taking outside in extreme climates or haven't, but I can tell you that in studio, it definitely gets warmer than the FX30 or the FX3. Both cameras, R5C from Canon, all of those cameras have built-in fans, and it only has one card slot, and it doesn't have mounting points and stuff like that, like you have in the FX30 and FX3. Uh, but it is a full frame camera, and I've never had it overheat here in the studio. That doesn't mean it's not going to overheat somewhere else, but I would say that the A7C II, I did get the Sony Alpha, I think it's the 60, is it the, maybe it's not the 6700, whatever the latest in the 6000 series is. And that definitely overheated here inside of the studio, controlled environment, sitting behind the teleprompter here. Do they say Goonies never say die in Oregon? I don't know if they say it, but it's a hop, skip, and a jump to Astoria and Cannon Beach and that kind of stuff, which maybe I did when I was younger, but I have no recollection of going to either of those places. And it's kind of ridiculous because I should just hop in the car and drive a little bit more north on the coast. Coast is only about an hour from me, but Cannon Beach, 2.5, maybe 2 and change. And then Astoria. I think more people go to Astoria who sort of are up in the northern part of Oregon, because it's due west from Portland or pretty close to that. But I should go. And I heard there's a fish and chips place, I think it's in Astoria, that only makes fish and chips out of salmon. I'm not a big salmon person, but I've heard it's excellent. So I'm willing to try it. It's food. Why not? All right, here we go. Scott's got a loaded question here. Have you ever wanted to film, write, direct a narrative feature? I've definitely thought about it in the past, but I realized quite some time ago it's just not my lane. I think that's the answer. You're going to Boca Chica to film the Starship Flight 7 from a cool location with a special person that I can't say, but it'll be live. A special person. Elon Musk. I'm excited to hear about this. But Scott, you just come, it's like one after the other. Did you hear the Explorer Act was signed into law? We can now, yes, I did hear about this, reasonably film in national parks without permits. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Not that people haven't shot in national parks without permits before, but there's a lot of people around. So I had to pull a permit when we shot at Red Rock Canyon. Though I might still would have had to nowadays with the Explore Act. Because on that one, that was a project for Zeiss. We were actually, I have them out because I'm bringing them to this production. We were doing a project that was in and around using bodice lenses. And we had a drone, good sized drone, to fly the A7S Mark II back then, I think. And then we were using the bodice lenses, and then we were shooting with an FS7 Mark II, also with the bodice lenses. And I hired rock climbers. So we basically, we went in on the trailhead, had to bring everything to the location, and then we shot all day. But I imagine because of that, we would have had to get a permit because of the drone part. I'm the Brown says, about to sell my rarely used Sony 200-600 A6700, the GM50 f1.2, and maybe another lens to get the A1 Mark II. Oh, okay. Feel free to share where you're going to post that, and maybe people are interested with that. Britt and I went to Cannon Beach on our trip. Haystack is incredible. All caps, all the way. That's rad. I'm stoked for you, Brandon. And Shoji says, what Sony video? I'm not trying to be... that sounded bad. I'd really love to go, to be honest with you. And what I'm most interested in about your trip to Cannon Beach is the food. So there you go. What Sony video format do you record with? It just depends. I mean, generally nowadays, because media is inexpensive, the highest quality one. Sometimes you have to switch the format based on the resolution and frame rate that you want to shoot with the camera. But if I have the choice, I'm going with the AVC, the best in the camera. Jeff says, did you talk about Rhino going out of business? I did not yet. I was kind of shocked. I didn't invest in any Rhino sliders. I know people who did, but they had a lot of neat stuff. Yeah, I'm bummed about that one. And there's an article, a pretty lively article on newsshooter.com about it. It's always sad to see companies go under. Some of that's happening in LA in the restaurant scene too. You know, the seemingly incredibly successful pizza place in LA just closed its doors at the beginning of the year. Nobody thought. I mean, this is a place that had lines out the door, but clearly they weren't making what they needed to make to sustain that business. It wasn't profitable, or at least that's what it seems like. In our industry, it is really sad. I mean, there's kind of a sadness when companies get acquired as well, unless they're getting acquired by a company that you think is going to make that brand even greater, those products even greater. But when they go under, especially, we call them mom and pop stores or businesses like Rhino, it's really a shame. But you should go to newsshooter.com. You can read that thread. The owner of the company is chiming in. I think a big part of their struggle were electronics, based on that back and forth and not being able to resolve certain things that they wanted to resolve, that customers wanted them to resolve. And running a business in this industry is hard. Even if you're doing it on a smaller scale, because if you have any element of success whatsoever within a product category that doesn't exist or is not mature in any way, seemingly overnight, there's going to be copycats of those products and the things that are coming out. Some of them just a similar or same as version that the company was creating. Occasionally, a company will come out with what looks like to be a similar product, but it's actually better. So I don't know. It's a bummer though. Scott says, I'm assuming about this shoot. He worked on the project. Worked on a project. Oh no, worked on the project in a nat park permitted, and we had a drone day. And the park said, if at all possible, please launch outside the park and fly in. It would make their life easier. We took off in the park, but it was really touch and go because Red Rock Canyon is basically in Las Vegas, right? You're just outside of Las Vegas, and if you remember, when Trump was in office last time, the national parks closed for a period of time, so we couldn't even permit. When the parks opened, I had been in communication, but when the parks opened, I got the permit. It got issued days before, and then unbelievably, we were supposed to shoot there on a Monday. We flew down, I don't know, maybe Friday or Saturday. Was that right? I think so. Thinking, hold on. Maybe it was on set. Whatever it was a day or two before production. It snowed. Crazy. Parks opened. We were permitted. We're totally screwed. Actually, the park didn't open. The first day that the park opened, because of the snow, it would have opened a little bit earlier, was the day that we went in. Clouds parted, sun was shining. Bob's your uncle. We got lucky. The next day, we went to the ghost town, which is like this really cool location outside of Vegas, to shoot some stuff. And it was cloudy. The lighting was flat. So we got really lucky on that one. It happens. Sometimes you don't get lucky. I'm DeBrown says selling my gear to KEH. That makes sense. Smart. And have a rep that comes to Miami every couple of months. They give a bonus credit if you buy from the local shop that hosts them. Very nice. Very nice. All right. I didn't realize you were in Miami. Get some good food down there. That's a good food city. You know, it's not a good food city if you like certain types of things. You're not going to Miami for barbecue, generally. I'm sure there's a good place. You're not generally going to Miami for certain types of cuisine. Probably an Asian community there, but that's not. But I would say get into, Cuban food. Ridiculous. Um, oh, how do you feel about volunteer helpers? I have mixed feelings about that. You know, um, it depends on their experience, I think. I would much rather hire somebody who, will call it a channel subscriber, who has production experience and I'm going to a location, than to say, "Oh, you can come and help for nothing." I have a very specific viewpoint about that, which is if somebody's going to show up to a production, unless there's going to be a person or people as part of that production who are going to actively teach that person something new besides just observing, um, and it's a paid client project, then they should be getting paid. But then, from a producer standpoint, there's an expectation that they have some knowledge and that they can actually work without being um, supervised, right? So I guess that's my answer. Um, I always feel like if somebody's coming in as a volunteer or to do unpaid work because they want to get experience or just see how other people work, I still feel an obligation to have a lot of attention on that person. And I'd rather have somebody come in who's getting paid for a particular sphere of work that they're going to be doing or, helping with. Um, I just think it's a lot cleaner that way. So the answer is I'm not opposed. There have been times where I've been referred to or I've had people come and work on something who I've known of those people prior to working with them professionally. But knowing what they do, going back and forth, and then they become part of a production. I hope that answered the question. Um, yeah. Pelican. Yep. They are kind of a staple. They opened a new location, not brand new, but there's a location in Lincoln City. I think their original was in Pacific City, which is where the dory boats come in. All pretty cool stuff. And their fish and chips are, you know, right in the middle tier. They're not up here, but they're not down here. As long as the oil's clean, everything's good. Well, fish has to be fresh too. Potatoes are pretty forgiving, except for, we're not talking about Ireland here. That's historical. All right. What do we got? I have no idea how much time we've got. We're 45 minutes into this thing. How did that happen? We're talking. We're walking here. Yeah. Nothing is blown up. I answered I'm DeBrown's question. What's next? We got 15. We don't have to use it up, but it's not like it carries over. That's a good question. What's for dinner? I have the same question, Brandon. I have not cooked this much consistently since the pandemic. The amount of cooking that has gone on in my house, primarily by myself, but also my wife, is absolutely insane. So the house just became sort of what our new normal is on Monday. We had people in our house staying with us consistently for about a month and a half. And I just cannot tell you how much cooking went on. But that's what I'm hoping in 2025 is I get enough money to pay back all the food that I bought and cooked. But for dinner, school starts for my son tomorrow, so we want to find out what he wants to eat the day before school starts. Um, what's up, turd knocker? Ding dong, ding dong. Well, that's a greeting. I recently went on a lifestyle company video production, and for the first time, my van and all the gear was included in the quote. The DP was the one that got me on the job. That's cool. I'd love to hear more about it. I'm the Brown says, one problem about authentic food in the Miami area is many of the best tasting places have the worst health department ratings. I hear you. You know, it's a calculated risk. Sometimes you're going to take it, sometimes you're not. But if the food's rad, then I'm stoked. Jeff says, same, so much cooking, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's nice not to eat out and save the money. Yeah, I didn't save the money. That's the problem, because consistently I was cooking for a minimum of 7 people every single day. Um, that went up to 9 or 10 for a good portion of time, right around the Christmas time, and we had 22 people here for Christmas Eve. I think we were, yeah, it's a lot of people. Let's just put it that way. There you go. And very upset about one thing, by the way. And I just want to say this because I was upset. I'm an instant read thermometer person, and I was very excited because I wanted to get meat probes, not what you're thinking if you don't cook. And I got a dual probe system. Again, not what you're thinking if you don't cook. And it came with a base station that didn't require you to use an app. And all of the ratings were off the charts, 4.7, 4.8, blah, blah, blah. I cooked a standing rib roast, and I knew something was wrong when I put the probes in to the standing rib roast, the prime rib, when the ambient temperature was reading differently. When I put it in the oven, it's one oven. I'm not splitting it and putting it in 2 ovens. The difference in temperature, inserted about the same amount into the meat, was almost a 10-degree difference. So I tried to play the game of, pulling it out at the, again, not what you're thinking if you don't cook, of the oven early enough that, the extra 10 degrees or so. So if I'm going to do a standing rib roast, I'm probably going to pull it at like 125 at most. At most, because the ends are going to be more cooked. It's going to continue to cook. And it was a shame. When I played the game of splitting the difference with the 2 probes, and then I took it out, and I used the instant read, it read like 140. My heart sank. I made up for it. I didn't, because that was Christmas Day, but I made up for it like a week later. I had another one that I had bought because you can get deals on them during the holidays, and that one came out perfect. But I didn't use. I returned those probes. Again, not what you're thinking if you don't cook. I'm the Brown says, I was in the U.S. Army with a guy that always called people turd knockers. Here we go. You've done a lot of work with Canon, producing training videos, etc. How did that come about, and did you like the experience? I loved it. I mean, it was really the beginning of myself and my company producing educational content at scale. How did it happen? Well, back in the early days, prehistoric days, there was this little camera called the 5D Mark II that kind of exploded on the market. And when it did, uh, my company and my productions were already using 1/3 inch, you know, half-inch chip cameras with 35 millimeter lens adapters. So when the 5D Mark II came out, it was like, okay, now we're going to get a large sensor look without having to go and jump through hoops and use a 35 millimeter lens adapter. Well, an entire industry, as you know, built itself around that because a mirrorless camera is not generally designed. I mean, the FX30 has these taps and stuff, but it's really not designed for regular video production. So we had all these companies pop up: Red Rock Micro, Zacuto, oh my God, Thunder Bay, come on, Cinovate, a whole bunch of companies came out with products that were support products, including your cheap Cowboy Studio off of eBay, and more eBay than Amazon back then. Um, so I actually approached Canon at a trade show and I said that I'm doing, stuff, blah, blah, blah. And they came back to me at a later date and asked if I could write an article on rigging DSLR cameras, which I did. I was already writing for magazines like Studio Daily and stuff. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything in that space. Um, and so I wrote an article and I thought that was it. And then they approached me to create a series of educational videos around the 5D Mark II, the 7D Mark I, and then eventually, actually, as part of that project, we did some of their XF series cameras as well. What was originally going to be, I think, 9 videos turned into 21 videos. It was a 3+ month project. Myself, I think I consider him one of my dearest friends, Matt Porwall, who's an amazing cinematographer, and a couple of other people basically just worked on producing that content during that period of time. And that has now turned into a 14 or 15-year relationship. And while a lot of things have changed at Canon, I'm fortunate that I still do projects for them sometimes. And I hope that answers that question. It was a very long answer. I'm sick of everything needing an app. It was cool for a while. Yeah, I'm apped out too. It's not rad. I'm not stoked. I don't like using my phone for things. One of the reasons that really one of the main reasons that I have an iPad mini is because of that. Because I want a dedicated device that I can use for apps for what I do in production, and I don't want my phone to be that. So I hope that answers that. Oh no, good to have you right here. I don't know if you've been here all the time, but thanks for stopping in. We're getting close. David says, I had 2 people helping to lug gear, setting up lights and grip. One was a gaffer, and now he may rent my 1200D. After it was over, the DP threw me an extra 200 and gave my main grip $50. There you go, for the booze fund. Everything has an app. It's insane. It is insane. I'm sorry, Ding Dong. It's ridiculous saying that. I was just reading your comment about the 5D Mark III. We still have a 5D Mark III here too. We had a 2 and a 3, never got the 4. My father got the 4, but for still photography. If I was going to buy a Canon mirrorless camera right now, for me personally, it'd be the R5C. But I'm definitely looking at C80 and C400. Yeah. All right. This live stream needs an app to do what? That's what I want to know. What's up, Small Brown Fox? Happy New Year. I think that's it. It's interesting. I must have stirred something up in the air because before I started the live stream, everything was fine. But I think I've been packing and going through some bags and stuff and the dust, but it's all good. I like my Sunseeker app, great app, and my Kelvin meter color temperature checker app. It's the apps that you have to use to control equipment that annoy me. Yeah, I'm down with you on that. Um, mm, yes. All right. Any more for the last five? 5 minutes and counting here. Ding Dong just got two R5Cs. Blows our C200s away. Love them so much. Yeah, I have a C200 over there. I actually just used it. What did I use it on? I used it on the Axoon video where I was talking about the Axoon CineView Master 4K wireless transmitter receiver. And that sensor's soft. I created the training series for those like that. I did that whole project. And I thought that camera was bonkers when it came out. And not a bad camera. I mean, there haven't been tons of changes in terms of that form factor um, and sort of the ports and things. There have been some things have been updated, but like, they have been. But you still had Cinema Raw in there and some other cool stuff. But the sensors, just compared to today's sensors, um, soft. Again, not what you're thinking unless you're a filmmaker. Sunseeker's great, always has been, just does what it's supposed to do. A lot of people use Google Earth when they're scouting a remote location. Can give you a good sense of where things are going to be in terms of field of view, composition, and lighting, especially for exteriors. Well, I've never seen a post like this. My brother gifted me 8 packs of premium bacon. I don't even know what to do with that, David. You go from the grip truck and the gaffer and the extra $200 and 50 for your grip to my brother gifted me 8 packs of premium bacon. What am I supposed to do with that information? I would render it down slow in the oven. Is it like that thick bacon? Is it thick bacon? Is it the kind of bacon that you're going to render down and then you're going to just do amazing things with maple syrup with it, and then it's going to go into an amazing cocktail concoction? Is it rad? Are you stoked? I don't know what's wrong with me today. It's medium cut. Of course it is. I hate to say that there is a too much thickness to bacon. What are we talking about here, Ono Coffee? Is this one of those episodes where when we get to the end, we fall off of a cliff? I'm a big fan of thick cut, but if I'm going to make thick cut bacon, by the way, it's going in the oven on a rack and it's going to get slow cooked. I'm talking like you're not going above 300. You want to render that fat out of that thing. Yeah. You want to render the fat. I went too far with the pork belly when I made the porchetta. I ordered the fennel pollen, which was amazing in the porchetta, but I scored the outside of the pork belly too much and I rendered it too much that I couldn't get that crackly, ice skating rink deliciousness. So there's a round 2 on that. I'm the Brown. Besides getting his new Sony camera, he's going to wait to see what the next FX330 looks like. If no major improvements, the C480 should have a price drop. Boom. Boom. What do you mean Costco bacon used to be the bomb? You better put the T in there, ding dong, because otherwise it's like a company that's making carts and dollies and things. Tables, fold out plastic tables. But too thick is when it no longer is that enjoyable level of pliability. Render the fat. You let the fat it's like when you take guanciale or pancetta or bacon and you cook it and you let you're not cooking on such high heat that the fat just sort of melts into the pan. It renders into deliciousness that you can use for other things. Like when I made the porchetta, all of that fat rendered. And then when it was consumed, I took all of those drippings and I strained them and I put them in a mason jar in the fridge. And when I'm cooking potatoes now, parboil the potatoes, take them out, toss them in that porchetta lard deliciousness with all of that flavor, add some fresh rosemary, whack it in a very hot oven, and let those get crispy. And you won't hate yourself unless you're a vegetarian or a vegan. You know what I'm saying. All right, kids. Uh, we're done. We are done. And yes. All right, kids. It's great to have everybody come by. Great to have this community. And I'll be back in 2 weeks because next week I'll be on an airplane flying back from La La Land. All the best and take care of yourselves. And again, it's all about your family and friends. Enjoy them. Do what you love for a living. And I'll see you soon. And keep engaging on the episodes of The Daily Drop. All right, take care. Bye.